All right. So as I mentioned, we're going to bring it home with our final keynote speaker. Don Hall is here to talk about what's next, growing a movement for regenerative communities. He'll also lead us through a visioning activity, reflection, and discussion. Don has served the international transition towns movement in a variety of capacities over the past 17 years, initially serving for 2 years as education and outreach coordinator for Transition Colorado, the first official transition initiative in North America, and a statewide hub. Don founded Transition Sarasota and became a certified transition trainer in 2010. After 6.5 years as Transition Sarasota's executive director, he became co-director of Transition US in 2017, and then executive director in 2020. Don currently serves as training coordinator for Transition Network and is the author of the Regeneration Handbook, Transform Yourself to Transform the World. Please join me in welcoming Don Hall.
All right, how's everybody doing? Feeling pretty full. It's been a wonderful day. Just want to thank Sarasota County Government and IFAS for putting this on. I feel honored and humbled to be up here today, asked to deliver the closing keynote. Yeah, when I was asked to do this, asked the question of what's next, probably not surprisingly for somebody who's written a book called the Regeneration Handbook, my answer was growing a movement for regenerative communities. And I'm going to unpack a little bit about what that is, why it's so important, and how we can do this. So in terms of action for sustainability that everybody can get involved with, there's really two main types of activism that we know very well that have permeated our culture over the past decades. First one being political advocacy, getting out there in the streets, protesting, lobbying, taking direct action, and of course, this is very important still. And then on the other side of the spectrum, we have individual behavior change. Bringing our reusable bags to the farmers market and supporting local farmers, taking shorter showers, planting Florida-friendly landscapes, and so forth. But there's a third type in between these two, the kind of large-scale political advocacy and the small-scale behavior change that I think is really important and very much unrecognized in our culture, which is this work of growing regenerative communities. And we've heard a lot about that already today. But what specifically do I mean by regenerative communities? These are just a few examples of the kinds of things that we do in the Transition Towns movement, this wider regenerative communities movement. Starting up at the top left, we have learning to grow our own food, learning to grow our own medicine, learning how to preserve the harvest. All these kind of skills that people had as a matter of course in the past, but that we've lost in an increasingly industrialized and globalized world. Moving over to the right, we have community-owned renewable energy companies and community-owned renewable energy projects, such as solarized projects, getting groups of people together to purchase solar panels in bulk. Or, as I said, starting these community-owned renewable energy companies where local people are investing and pooling their money to put solar panels, wind turbines up on rooftops, schools, hospitals, public housing, etc. Regenerating our local economies through the use of local currencies, time banks, supporting local independent businesses and worker-owned cooperatives. The sharing economy. So we have seed banks, tool libraries, car sharing, all sorts of different innovative techniques to reduce our consumption as individuals and as communities. Community-led redevelopment, taking some of the power back from the developers and having the community itself envision what future it wants to bring about and then mobilize the resources to make that happen. Creating whole local and regional food systems, networks for aggregating and distributing local produce, and entrepreneurship in the local food space. Energy conservation initiatives, working with businesses and homeowners to reduce the amount of energy that they need by retrofitting houses and upgrading to the latest technologies. Zero waste campaigns. We have down here in the bottom center picture of the leaders of the Pasadena Repair Cafe. The Repair Cafe movement started in the Netherlands about 15 years ago, has spread to thousands of communities around the world. Other approaches being free stores, plastic bag campaigns to eliminate plastic bags in grocery stores and so forth. And finally, working with indigenous and other marginalized communities through land back, through creating community land trusts, intentional communities, and so forth. So a very, very vibrant movement of movements that includes lots of different strategies, lots of different ways to get involved and create positive solutions to the ecological crisis. Things that we can do here now without waiting for permission, without needing a lot of resources or expertise. But why? Why regenerative communities? First, I believe we need to dig a lot deeper to achieve real sustainability. One of the data points that I feel is most powerful is that the Ecological Footprint Network says that if everybody on Earth today, even with current population, was to live like the average American, we would need 5.1 Earths to sustain us. And we don't have 4 spare Earths. So we're talking about an 80% reduction from the average American lifestyle. How many people in this room could say that they're there? I don't know if I am. So I think we need to go deeper, and one way of doing that is through relocalization, by bringing production and consumption much closer together, becoming more resilient and self-reliant as local communities. We also need a positive vision that we can work towards. I think especially in these times where, we look on the news, we listen to politicians and the media, and all we see is one catastrophe after another. I think regenerative communities provides a real alternative vision of the future that we can look towards and start building now. Not just a way to do less bad, but a way to do more good. We also need to experiment and learn what works, because what works in one context may not work in another. That the solutions to our ecological crisis are, in very many cases, local solutions that are locally adapted, not just to the environment, but to the culture locally. We need to prove a better future is still possible. I think there's a lot of despair and apathy out there. People do not see a clear, credible alternative to the status quo. It just looks like, we're racing towards the edge of a cliff and nobody's doing much more than tapping on the brakes. So by creating these alternative systems, these positive solutions, and spreading them as far and wide as possible, we can restore hope that big change is still possible, that we can do this, that we don't sink into apathy, that we don't turn off and tune out, but we lean into the challenges of our times. And finally, we need to build power from the bottom up. If we're going to make the radical changes that are possible, it's not going to happen just on the individual level. It's also, we don't have the power right now to implement these kind of really paradigm-shifting solutions at scale. But we can build that power from the bottom up. And that's always where successful grassroots movements start, is at the local level. And it's a place where we can kind of get underneath all the polarized political debates of our time and really get down to the question of what kind of future do we want to see for our local community, and how can we build that together, bringing people together from all walks of life and all across the political spectrum. So I think this regenerative approach of working at the local level has a lot to recommend itself in these times. This is a graphic from my book. I've imagined this movement of movements around the world as this great tree that is rooted in the wisdom of the earth and the natural patterns and processes of nature, that has a trunk that is the indigenous cultures of the world and all the ecological knowledge and the social knowledge that they contain, and has all these different branches, one of which we could say is this regenerative communities movement, and then all these leaves representing different groups and organizations. And these are just a few of my favorites. I don't have time to talk about all of them individually. You could take a picture of the screen if you like, and look them up later. But wonderful organizations working on economics, on energy literacy, sharing economies, intentional communities, community self-governance, local food systems, inner transformation for sustainability, creative placemaking, environmental education, and so forth. And Paul Hawken famously said in his 2007 book, Blessed Unrest, that this is the largest movement that the world has ever seen. But many people don't know that it exists because it doesn't have a central organization. that's running it all. It doesn't have a single charismatic leader that everyone can identify. And I think that's actually a good thing. That's actually how this needs to happen. It needs to be bigger than anything we can comprehend. In 2007, Hawken estimated that there were 130,000 groups around the world that were part of this great movement of movements towards social and environmental justice. And he backed it up by starting a website called Wiser Earth that some of you might be familiar with. And before Wiser Earth closed down in 2014, they had cataloged over 114,000 such groups. And I think that this is something that we can take great heart in, that this movement is bigger than probably any of us in this room even know. So one of my favorite movements is the International Transition Towns movement that I've been a part of for the past 17 years. It started in England around 2005, 2006, and it was really just one community, Totnes, England, looking at how can we transition from oil dependence to local resilience. But what they did was so successful and engaged so many people throughout their community that other nearby towns and cities started emulating their approach. And the founder, Rob Hopkins, wrote a book called The Transition Handbook that soon spread this movement around the world to the point at which transition groups now exist in over 1,000 communities around the world in nearly 70 countries. And one of the reasons I particularly love transition is it is a simple and accessible social technology that anyone can use to connect with what they're most passionate about, and then start to gradually build a movement for change in the community around that issue, and gradually scale up their practical impacts over time. And one of the models that we refer to that came out of the movement itself is the 5 stages of transition. And I have it depicted here as a journey through a mountainous landscape at which each stage, the whole ecology changes. So it starts, aptly enough, with starting out. And this is about gathering together an initiating group, maybe 5 to 8 people who are also passionate about this work and are committed to helping get the initiative up off the ground, because none of us can do this alone. And then starting to offer educational and awareness-raising events for the community, both to start to develop a kind of common understanding of what the greatest issues that we're facing, but also some of the greatest potential solutions that we have available that are already working in places around the world. But awareness raising also serves the purpose of building a robust enough base of support to get the group off the ground and into the next stages. So what this looked like for us with Transition Sarasota was offering educational events on many, many different topics, on food, on education, the arts, energy, economics. This is a picture event that we did at Fogartyville Community Media and Arts Center. Back in, I think, 2013, we screened a documentary film called The Economics of Happiness and followed it up with a World Cafe discussion about what would an economics of happiness look like for Sarasota. How can we envision that? What might be part of that? And a very important part of this starting out stage is harnessing the collective genius of the community. What do people really care about? What skills do people have? What interests do people have? What opportunities do we have as a community here? And coming out of this, we realized that food was the place to start, where we had the most momentum, where we could make the most difference. So starting out, at a certain point, it's not enough. If we're just talking about these things, people are inevitably going to get bored and start heading for the exits. So deepening is about moving into practical action and proving that our ideas can work in practice, that they can make people's lives better, that they can put money in people's pockets, food on their tables, and roofs over their heads. Our first proof of concept for Transition Sarasota was starting the Suncoast Gleaning Project, where we brought volunteers, including many familiar faces in the audience today, out to local farms where there was surplus produce that the farmer couldn't bring to market for one reason or another, and harvesting that produce and donating it to local food banks, soup kitchens, church food pantries to benefit the food insecure in our community. And to date, now Community Harvest SRQ has donated well over 500,000 pounds of local and organic produce to benefit the food insecure in our community. And many, many positive ripple effects from this project, including the Florida Department of Agriculture using Transition Sarasota Suncoast Gleaning Project as a model for other gleaning project pilots around the state. Deepening, if we do it well, if we can prove that our ideas can work and make people's lives better, leads into a broader connecting. We're connecting throughout this process, but at this stage we have the credibility, we have the support to reach out broader beyond the early adopters, to those who might have been skeptical at first. And partner more widely with key cultural institutions, local governments, businesses, funders, and so forth. For us with Transition Sarasota, moving into the connecting stage meant weaving together a lot of different businesses and organizations that were already part of our local food system, but may not have been working together with each other. We did that through our Eat Local Week, and this is a picture of some of the organizers of the first annual Eat Local Week, receiving a proclamation from their then County Commissioner John Thaxton. So we brought together dozens of different organizations to put on dozens of different events each year celebrating the best of local food and farming in Sarasota and Manatee counties. We're in our 15th year now, and Eat Local Week is ongoing. This is part of it, and a few more events still to come. The other project that we took on in the connecting stage was creating Eat Local Resource Guide and Directory to map our whole local food movement and make local food sources more easily accessible to the general public. And you can see here on the left, when we first started out, about 97 listings. Today in 2025, about 230 listings. So creating kind of an atmosphere for innovation and entrepreneurship that can really grow these kind of movements, whether we're focused on food or whatever. The resources and the support that comes in through the connecting stage then can lead us into a building stage where we're taking on larger and larger projects, more kind of systems changing strategies. And I'll give you 3 examples of this, projects that were started during my time with Transition Sarasota, but have yet to be realized, but I think there's still potential for these to come back around. One is a new local food shed study. The last was done in 2006, and it showed that if all Sarasota County residents spent just 10% of their food dollars buying from local farmers, that would add $80 million a year to our local community, potentially creating thousands of new green jobs. Now, almost 20 years later, I'd like to see where we are. Another project that we launched fairly early on was this 10% local food shift pledge. But we mostly targeted at individuals, saying, I will grow or buy at least 10% of my food locally. But what I'd love to see is this extended out to local governments, to businesses, to restaurants, to grocery stores, to anchor institutions like hospitals and schools, and maybe even upping it to 25% at this point. And then finally, slow money. So this is an international movement around taking some of your money out of Wall Street and putting it to work in local businesses that you know and believe in. There's lots of different ways to do this, and with Sarasota being such a wealthy and generous community, I think this could be a great idea to help to supercharge the local food movement and create more businesses and opportunities for growth. And all of this leads up to Daring to Dream, which is really moving beyond one local community, because no matter how good we do, we can't do it by ourselves. No community is an island in this era of globalized climate change. So to do that, to really win the future for regeneration, I think there's 2 main things that we need to do. First, we need to make this regenerative vision universally known, to spread it as far and wide as possible, to break through into the mainstream media, to have this talked about on debate stages in the same ways that we might debate abortion or guns or jobs, affordability, and so forth. And we need to develop as many successful, practical alternatives to the status quo in as many places as possible. Otherwise, this vision could be dismissed as some kind of hippie pipe dream. But if we can really show that these alternative systems, which are already working in places all over the world, if we can bring them to more places so people can really experience and begin to trust in them, then I think we have a chance of convincing people that this is a different path that we can take. So that instead of our seemingly inexorable journey towards uninhabitable Earth, that we could steer humanity onto a regenerative path before it's too late. And I believe that we can do this. I believe that we can still do this. This kind of regenerative work can grow exponentially as one person influences and touches the lives of dozens or hundreds of others. And I have it on good authority from Transition Towns Movement founder Rob Hopkins, who is now a professional time traveler and has visited the future many times, and he has told us that yes, we will win. But we can't just take his word for it. we need to see this for ourselves. So what I'd like to do next is to take you on a journey to the future so that you can see for yourself what may develop here, particularly in this area here in Southwest Florida. So I'd like to invite you to close your eyes, if you will, and to take a good posture in your seat. To place your feet flat on the floor and ground into the energy of the earth, the energy of practicality, of stability. And to, as much as is comfortable for you, to try to straighten your back up a little bit. You could imagine a little string being tied to the top of your head and being pulled gently upward and connecting with that great space of vision and inspiration that's above us and all around us. Take a moment to tune into your breath. You can imagine on the in-breath, taking in nourishing light and oxygen, filling every cell in your body. And on the out-breath, letting go of any tension, busyness, mental chatter that may be happening. So we're emptying out everything that we've learned today, everything that we've experienced, and bringing in fresh, open, inspiring energy. And like I said, we're going to travel forward in time, 20 years to 2045, through the magic of our imaginations. And when I snap my fingers, that will open up a wormhole right here in this room that will enable us to travel there. And when I snap my fingers again, we'll be in 2045, right in the middle of 5 Points Park in downtown Sarasota. So here we go. So we find ourselves in the middle of downtown, arriving in 2045, shaking off the jet lag, and beginning to look around us to see what we see, hear what we hear, and to notice what's different. And we can wander out of the park, see what the built environment looks like in this regenerated future. See the streets. See what businesses we have downtown. see how people are living. Maybe we peek our head into one of these businesses or apartment buildings. Maybe we sit in a cafe and read the newspaper, see what's happening in 2045. Maybe we wander down to Payne Park and lay on our backs in the grass. Just explore what our downtown area might look like in this more regenerated community. And after a couple of hours of doing that, we all find our way back to 5 Points. And we've brought with us 4 drones that we're going to send out in the different directions, in the 4 directions. First to the north, down North Tamiami Trail. Past the Ringling Museum and New College and towards Bradenton and Ellington and Parrish. And what do you see? What's different? How are people getting around? How are we using the land? How have things changed? And then we send another drone out to the east, and we're seeing these images projected into the air before us on the back of our eyelids. Going down Fruitville Road and crossing Beneva to the interstate and out to Mayaka and the agricultural lands. What do we see there? What may have changed? And we send a third drone to the south, flying down South Tamiami Trail. What's happened to all those old strip malls and shopping malls? Crossing through Osprey and historic Spanish Point and Venice, all the way down to Northport. What do you see? And lastly, we send out the final drone to the west, across the bayfront, St. Armand's Circle, out into the Gulf of Mexico. What do we see there? What might be different? And many hours have now passed, taking a bird's eye view of our whole region and how it's changed over the past 20 years. And a crowd of people have gathered. I've heard that some intrepid time travelers from 2025 have come to visit, and they've arranged some long tables prepared with a great feast. All sorts of local food and beer and wine. And we're having a great time and talking to these people from 2045 who are very anxious to talk with us and share with us. And we ask a few questions. First one, how did we get here? What kind of changes occurred over the last 20 years that led us to this regenerative, sustainable, and just future? And we ask them, what are you most proud of? Of all the changes that have happened over the last 20 years? And what was most challenging? And how did you overcome those challenges? And finally, we ask them if they have any advice for us to take back to 2025 to help make sure this better future comes to pass. Just listen to what they say. And now it's time for us to return, before we all turn into pumpkins. So when I snap my fingers, we'll travel back through the wormhole, seeing the years flying by us. And when I snap them again, we'll be back here in 2025 at the Harvest House Learning Center. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. So welcome back. I hope you had a good journey. And now we're going to take some time to reflect on that and to think, what did we see here in our vision? What may have surprised us? What was most meaningful we could imagine about how this community could become more sustainable, more equitable, and regenerative over the next 20 years? So I have a few minutes to write on that, just jot down some notes. Also, what kind of big ideas did that vision have for us now? What are some of the big ideas that we could start putting into practice? And then out of all those exciting ideas, what feels like yours to do? What feels most exciting to you to work on? And then finally, you've identified one thing that you'd be most excited to work towards. What kind of next steps could you take within next few months to start moving in that direction? So I'll give we have 10 minutes total? Okay. So we'll take about 5 minutes for that, and then we'll have some discussion at our tables.
Thank you, Dawn. I'm just going to, while you all are working on your worksheets, just make a couple points. So thank you so much for participating in the exercise. When Dawn, Michelle, and I were discussing this session, we thought, wouldn't it have been interesting if we would have done this same exercise 20 years ago and looked at it today to see what our community members visioned for our community? Therefore, we, Sarasota County Sustainability, would like to collect these worksheets at the end and save them in our files so we can look at them in the future. So after you're done, just go ahead and take a picture of your worksheet if you want to keep it. Leave it on your table. You do not have to put your name on it. It can be anonymous. And another thing we're going to use it for, too, is we're about to wrap up our comprehensive climate action plan that's due to EPA in December. And that plan has goals and action ideas for the next 25 years up into 2050. So we're also going to use it for that and to get some feedback and some more information about what you all want to see in your community in the next 20 years. So thank you.
All right. Everybody come on back. I know it's just the beginning of a conversation. After this, we're going to have a social and invite you to continue to have these conversations about your vision for the future. What kind of big ideas could we implement here in Sarasota County, and what next steps we can take. And please do take a picture of your worksheet if you would like to take that with you. Leave the worksheet on the table. And thank you all for your time and attention. And thank you all for the great work you do.